What's going on, everybody? And welcome back to the Canadian Football Fanatics YouTube channel. Thank you guys for tuning in to another video. 10 weeks down here in the British Columbia Football Conference and 2 weeks to go. Well, that is until playoff time. So we will have some added weeks to go after that. But in the regular season, I can't believe it is already 2.5 months into the season with only 2 weeks left to go. Only basically for all extensive purposes, basically the first three seeds are already locked in. I know Prince George still has to officially clinch, but basically it comes down to the fourth and final playoff seed, and we will have our playoff picture potentially by the week's end, or potentially it could come down to week number 12 in the BCFC. And how exciting of a final week in the regular season could that be, as we could have to pay attention to two games, which will dictate who will be the fourth and final seed. So, back again, as always, inside the BCFC here on the Canadian Football Fanatics to give you guys coverage on a weekly basis of the conference. And excited, as I mentioned, playoff time is here. Going to be doing, kind of figured out, I feel like, a rough idea what we're going to be doing come playoff time, which is going to be kind of like a coach's show to preview each matchup throughout the playoffs. Going to be a ton of fun. Looking forward to sitting down with the head coaches once we figure out the four that will be represented in the playoffs this year. But other than that, it's been a ton of fun here at my first season working with the conference, and I feel like we can only get better from here going into the off season, which I'm really excited for, and hopefully with chatting with Tyler and some people with the conference, really excited to see how we were able to attack the off season and grow, as well as kind of give you guys some coverage during the off season, so that it's not such a big long off season with nothing really to follow outside of the signings here and there from teams. My hope is that we can, hopefully work out something with Tyler and give you guys a podcast on probably not a weekly basis, but maybe a monthly basis during the off season. I think that would be a ton of fun. So, as I mentioned, it's been a ton of fun for my first season working with the conference, giving you guys a weekly show, and I feel like we could totally make this better going into next season and all that kind of stuff, as well as grow some of our content. Right, I feel like this season was a little bit kind of put together very last minute. So I feel like once we have a plan going into the season, we can work around some things, as well as our other content that we kind of really didn't see this coming. Basically, outside of 2 weeks before the season, when we got an email back from Tyler, we're kind of all locked into our BC Lions CFL coverage, and then wanted to shift things a little bit once we got the opportunity to work with the conference. So looking forward to that and for next year, but we still got some regular season ball to be played, and to find out who's going to be hosting the Cullen Cup and representing the BCFC in the Canadian Bowl playoffs. So we are going to be joined by a guest to get back into the episode here in a matter of moments. But before we do, of course, folks, if you guys are tuning in on YouTube, we appreciate you guys first and foremost. But if you guys can, please feel free to leave a like on today's video, comment down below, letting us know how you guys are enjoying today's video, as well as the season's content. And of course, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. When you guys subscribe, hit the notification bell. You guys get notified every time we go live or upload a video like this one right here. Other than that, you guys can find us on our social media platforms, as well as we are growing quite well on Instagram, specifically at Canadian Football Fanatics on Instagram, and we are over on Twitter as well at _CF Fanatics over there as well. Twitter hasn't been as active in the last little while, but we'll try to get things going again here in the near future to try to grow. I feel like the BCFC brand could grow over on Twitter as well, to try to hopefully encourage more fans to tune in, watch, listen, etc. As I feel like we have a pretty big presence already on Instagram. Myself, obviously Wiz and the huge presence that he already has, but I feel like it kind of it started with guys like for oldies like myself had I believe it was what was his Instagram handle, but CGFL Dieter, back in 2017 to 2019, he was kind of like the first Instagram CGFL guy who would post a little bit of stuff. Of course, we had Mob, the Godfather of the BCFC. We kind of like to joke with him last year in our little picks group chat, but with Wiz kind of blowing up, I feel like myself, being a part of that as well. hoping to try to maybe shift things a little bit to the Twitter world, if that's what you want to call it. And I feel like we could grow and attract new fans, a new community, grow a new community over there on Twitter as well. Because I know there is some fans over there that I've gotten a few comments as well, meeting a few of I guess interacting with some of the play-by-play guys from around the conference on Twitter as well. With I believe it's Warren Andrews over in Valley. He kind of found my Twitter and we're able to interact a few times. So there's CJFL fans over on Twitter. We just got to grow it and get the message out there. So that's the plan, is hopefully to be a little bit more active over there in the near future. But as I mentioned, you guys can follow us over there at CF @_ CF, not excuse me. We're going to quickly get into just give you guys the recaps or the scores, excuse me, from week number 10, and then we're going to throw it to our interview with our guest in week number 11 of Inside the BCFC. So quickly, because we will get into detail a little bit more after our guest gets out of here, but I know he has practice to look forward to, so we don't want to keep him waiting too long. But let's start with the upset of the week. We're going to work our way backwards. Start with the 7 o'clock game, work our way down to the 4 o'clock game, as we usually do it backwards. But upset of the week: Vancouver Island Raiders taking down the Westshore Rebels in a monsoon. I don't know if maybe quite monsoon, because it was a little bit of a lighter rain, but it consistently rained for 2.5, 3 hours of that football game, which was ridiculous. But at the end of the day, this game, although upset of the week, for me, it's going to kind of be described by 58 total penalties taken between the two teams, for a total of 485 yards in penalties combined between the two teams. So just a ridiculous amount of penalties, both sides being undisciplined, but at the same time, I feel like the refs kind of, you know, got in the way a little bit at times for sure. So I'm going to watch what I want to say there, and we're going to move on. As I mentioned, we'll come back after our guest leaves us, and we'll get into a little bit more detail. But the Raiders took it 10-8 up in Nanaimo to at least grab one of the 3 games between those two teams this year. And the next game, the Valley Huskers were able to take care of business over the Kamloops Broncos up in Kamloops at Hillside Stadium, 56-14, setting up a massive matchup between Valley and BI over there in Chilliwack this upcoming week. And then lastly, the Sun took down the Rams, not in quite a shocker, but obviously the score 94-0. I think the shock, or kind of maybe the surprise, came of, I thought the Langley Rams wouldn't be such a lopsided affair. I thought the Langley Rams would put up a much better fight than showcased on the scoreboard after that one. 94-0 to the Okanagan Sun. There were some outrageous scores around the CJFL. I believe St. Clair had another one as well. Other than that, as I mentioned, we'll get into the games a little bit more after this, as well as we'll chat a little bit about what's upcoming here in week number 11. But I want to throw it over to our interview and our guest right now. I don't want to keep him waiting. So without further ado, let's send it over to our guest of the episode right now. All righty, y'all. I am excited for this one. Joining me now is Vancouver Island Raiders defensive back, Juan Feliche Toscano. Phil, thanks for joining me, buddy. How are we doing?
I'm good, Cole. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good on a beautiful day like this. The last few nice days we do have left before the weather starts to turn, buddy. But just wanted to get you on, especially after the big win from you guys on a Saturday. Chat with you a little bit, as we actually haven't had anybody on from the Raiders this year on the Inside the BCFC. I know we chatted with Sean in the off season, going into the season and whatnot, but wanted to touch all of our bases, get to all of our teams, and of course, you guys are coming off the big game, big win, excuse me, this weekend. Some might call it, maybe the upset, of course, because myself, I know with some of the guys already giving it to me, picking Westshore, and Westshore being the, maybe the favorite team going in. But I know you guys are very confident in that locker room. You guys believe that you guys can play with anybody. But just kind of you being one of the more bigger, better players on the team, how are we feeling after the win on Saturday?
No, it feels amazing, honestly, to finally get one over these guys. We had 2 close games against them prior, so getting this one definitely feels much deserved, at least anyways. So the guys are feeling hot.
Yeah, so I'm curious, buddy, how you kind of I know from having a relationship with you that you're not one of the, the more vocal guys. You're kind of like a lead by example type of guy. But how do you kind of maybe this week kind of keep you guys kind of composed at practice, right? Where obviously it's a nice win, right? And it's very good to, compete with a team like that. But at the same time, right, we were just talking about off camera, like it doesn't really mean nothing as long as you guys, like, if you don't get in the playoffs, right? So you got to, stay composed at practice, make sure you guys don't get too high, and make sure you guys take care of your business here in the next 2 weeks. How do you kind of use your, I know, and like I said, I know you're not too vocal, but kind of just go to practice and you kind of just, handle your business and make sure the guys are locked in?
Yeah, pretty much just make sure the main focus is Valley, because really, yeah, last week didn't mean anything unless we win this week. So right now it's just got treated like a playoff game, because it pretty much is. So yeah, just getting on the guys, making sure we're competing, and it's just Valley this, Valley that. So that's all our focus is this week, getting the win.
So I'm curious, as I mentioned, with your leadership style, you're a more lead by example guy. You like to just go on the field and kind of do your work because, as I mentioned, not too much of a boisterous guy. But I'm curious, with knowing a little bit about your background and stuff like that, of like where maybe your work ethic, where your kind of your leadership maybe came from. As I mentioned, knowing you and going from going to John Barsby, I would imagine that kind of maybe played a little bit of a role into kind of like that work ethics side of things, as well as maybe like you talk about your parents or something like that, or maybe if it's like your siblings that have pushed you or whatnot. But just kind of where do you get that work ethic from?
Yeah, definitely probably from my family. Like my dad pushed me a lot when I was younger. Me and my older brother, we both played football too. So him being older and obviously having the age advantage on me, so it just made me kind of have to compete to his level. So I think that's what kind of made me kind of become the athlete I am today, kind of. So I just had to put on my older brother, even my older sister too. She was a bit of an athlete too. She played football. Not many people would know that, but like we have a very competitive family. So yeah, I think that's definitely where the competitiveness comes from and the hard work.
Wow, big sis freaking routing you up in the
Yep.
backyard, eh?
Yeah,
I
definitely.
love
Yeah.
I
Yep.
love that. But Phil, if you don't mind just talking a little bit about where you also came from and kind of played for John Barsby in that program and understanding being in this community and kind of not only the football player, but I feel like as I mentioned with like the work ethic, the man it can kind of turn you into and kind of treat you or can show you some of those like life lessons and values early on, and you can kind of like really mold yourself as a person. I feel like with guys like Rob Stevenson and kind of some of the guys that are around that program.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I started playing football for Ladysmith, the Ladysmith Steelers. So I spent probably until I was around grade 8 or 9 is when like it kind of capped out there for football, because there was nowhere football past that level. So I had to make a decision to go to either ND or Barsby, and then ultimately I know you're an ND guy, so I chose Barsby. So yeah, and then once I got into there, it was just like it was a whole different level of football, and like what Rob's coaching style, like he's really hard on the guys and making sure we're just working every single day. So yeah, like that was definitely what like helped me with my work ethic today too. So just showing up every day and being consistent.
Yeah, too bad, Philly. You would have looked good in green, buddy. But
Yeah, well,
right decision for your football career, 100%. As much as that pains me to say, but as well as like other stuff, like like leadership, right? Where they're keeping you guys in the weight room and stuff like that. They're keeping you guys training and whatnot. What other programs in BC don't really have, right? So I'm curious as well with you, Phil, of maybe people that wouldn't know, right? You were maybe a little bit of a late bloomer, right? Not too much. You weren't really highly recruited in high school. Were able to go to VI, and kind of. I believe you started off as a receiver, if I'm not mistaken. Transitioned over to playing DB and really excelled due to your athletic ability and stuff like that. Your work ethic once again. But do you kind of did? And I feel like I know where you're going to answer this because of the humbly guy you are and stuff like that. But is that a chip on your shoulder at all? Like being a little bit of a late bloomer, and I feel like you still have a ton of room to still like. There's another like level or two for Phil. Sorry, folks, but Phil, like I was saying there, buddy, talking a little bit about kind of you being a little bit of a late bloomer and stuff like that, and kind of I feel like you still have another level or two to get to. Did you think about that at all?
no, not really. I just kind of always worked hard my whole life and just kind of see where my talent can take me, whatever that is. So I'm just kind of a guy who's gonna grab my lunch pail and just keep working every single day.
I love that, Phil, and with watching you this off season, in the gym and stuff like that, competing in our flag leagues and whatnot, I could tell how much confidence that you're playing with more and more, and the more reps you're getting and stuff like that. As we just talked about, right? Late bloomer, just starting to play the position. Started out as a receiver. The kind of confidence I feel like you're playing with right now, where I'm chatting with you pregame and stuff like that, and we're talking about kind of your matchups and whatnot. And Sean is not shy away from throwing you out to the deep end, right? Of like, you're gonna lay in the boundary. You're gonna most often than not, you're gonna face the other team's best receivers, right? And not a lot of help's gonna be there, right? Obviously, sometimes you're gonna get a little bit from the defense and whatnot. You could be in zone and stuff like that. But how much confidence are you playing with right now? I feel like you're really kind of seeing the work that you're putting in off the field in the off season really come to fruition when you're on the field and you're strapped up in your pads.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the confidence definitely comes from watching film and just like preparation at practice. So I just like I know what I'm going to do at practice. I know what they're going to do. So just working my best there, and then just when it comes to game day, it's just like I know what you're going to do. So it's like you just got to beat me. So I feel like I got the upper hand in that way. So that's what kind of gives my confidence.
I love that, buddy. So last few here before we let you go to practice, Felice, because I know it's a busy work week, man. It's
Yep.
playoff football is here, man. But I'm curious. I've already asked you this, I feel like before, but have to ask you again and just get your answer for anybody that maybe hasn't heard you speak about your coach before, but just if you could just speak about Coach Rabsky, I feel like what he's not only meant for the Raiders, but your career in itself, right? Of like the work you guys put in the offseason in the gym. He's also training you guys off the field. He's also a defensive back by position. So he's seen most of the plays you've been in and stuff like that. So he's able to kind of relate to you guys, see what he or be able to like kind of say what he sees, right, or what he's been able to been through and how much of a resource I'm sure that's been for you throughout your career and you've been able to kind of utilize Coach Rabsky.
Yeah, no, definitely. He's been huge for the program the last 3 years, and ever since becoming head coach, and just like my last 3 years of just training with him, like has really taken my game to the next level, and I got a lot of credit due to him there. So I really appreciate everything he's done for me, and yeah, if you want to come out to Vancouver Island, I guarantee you that guy will make you a great athlete. So props to him.
Yeah, I love that. So um, I'm curious now, Phil, with 2 more weeks left in the regular season, pretty much a playoff game the next 2 weeks with Valley. You guys going to Valley this upcoming week, and then you guys will host the Langley Rams after that. What's gonna, I guess, kind of be the message to your group of like, people I'm sure around the BCFC will, joke and kind of laugh of like, oh, whoever gets the 4 seed signing up to go up to Okanagan and get, shit kicked in their mind, right? But I will remind folks, thinking back to a little bit of my experience, Sean's experience, right? 2017, we were the 3 seed, maybe a little bit different, but we did go up to Okanagan, ended up taking them out the number 2 seed and went on the road to, the number 1 in Westshore and ended up winning the Collin Cup, right? So it's not like it hasn't happened before of underdogs going on the road, winning 2 road games and being able to do things that people wouldn't expect them to do, right? And like you said right before, not to discredit Westshore at all, but I feel like you and I feel like I get made fun of being a homer a little bit more just because I feel like I'm supposed to be a little bit unbiased. But for being honest, and we're calling a spade here, both in Nanaimo and at Westshore were I feel like a lot closer than the final score indicated, especially the one down in Westshore with you guys in Westshore. So I feel like the confidence you guys are playing with, right? Of like you guys feel like you guys can beat anybody in the conference, right? PG, another one, right? Another close loss for you guys that could have went either way. As I said, the one up here in Nanaimo versus Westshore, I believe it was 11-11 late in the game or something like that. The one down in Westshore, I think it was 2017. So I'm curious for you guys, kind of what's going to be like obviously you guys want to get into playoffs, but like, I'm sure your guys' goal is not to just get into playoffs and it's like, oh, okay, it's all good. Your guys' is goal and his mindset's on winning the Collin Cup for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, we got to kind of lay in the bed that we made, and if we got to be underdogs, so be it. Like we're gonna come out and we're gonna punch you in the mouth, and we're gonna play the best football we can. We're not afraid of any team, so we believe that we can beat any team as well too. So we put in the work at practice. So yeah.
All right, Philly. Last couple for you, buddy. My last one for you, or my second last one for you, though. I'm curious. You had a little bit of experience at like camp as well as dipping your toe in some U Sports interests and stuff like that. How much do you think that maybe benefited your game of like going into the camp, being able to like rub shoulders with guys that are elite in the BCFC going into that, right? And being able to be like, man, like I can hang right here. I belong here, right, in this conversation. And then the U Sports of like, I'm sure there's maybe a little bit of tougher conversations of like maybe coaches are like, hey, I'd like you to get better here, or maybe like you do this really well, right? And you being able to utilize that and maybe like you use it this offseason, like, hey, I need to work on, press coverage a little bit more. I need to work on my off zone coverage a little bit more because, Coach Dobie said at Manitoba or whatever it might be, or maybe even going to the camp, right? Or, maybe Neil McAvoy when I spoke with Raiden Maston, he mentioned of kind of the reason why he's playing Sam this year was basically because the Lions at eCamp were like, hey, like we'd like to see you at Sam and see if you could be able to do that. So were you able to utilize those opportunities at all this offseason, or like hearing some maybe constructive criticism from those guys and being able to like apply it to your game in the offseason?
Yeah, definitely. It was cool to go out there and kind of measure yourself against other athletes too, to see where you got to be at physically and whatnot and stuff like that too. And like, yeah, getting interest from university teams definitely gives you a bit of a confidence boost, and also, lets you know like, hey man, I can do this. Like I can play at the next level and stuff like that. So that pushes you harder in the gym in the off season, stuff like that. So just to keep striving, keep getting better, so.
And last one for you, Philly, before you let you go, buddy. And I feel like I have an idea of where you're gonna go with this because once again I know how much of a humble guy you are. But I'm curious with those university opportunities and stuff like that. I should know this off the top of my head, Phil, but I'm blanking right now. You are currently in your fifth year,
Yeah, this is my 5th year, correct.
so that means no more coming back to the CGFL, buddy. So feel free to you can downplay this as much as you want to as well, and kind of focus on your business before you want to look forward to that. But do you look ahead at all, maybe potentially, the future and maybe like playing football after the CGFL, or do you think you're kind of like I said, just focused on the football ahead?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I'm not, of course, obviously, but yeah, I would love to play at the next level for sure. So whatever team that is, we'll have to see. I have to take my time in the off season, but of course, yeah, like I'm locked in right now though, so I'm not talking with anybody right now. Like as soon as the season's done though, I'll explore those options, but I'm thinking about playoffs right now. So
Damn right, buddy. Great answer. Any U Sports coaches watching though, hit up my man Felice Toscano, 2024 All Canadian. We should almost speak it into existence, 2025 All Canadian, because as I said, maybe a little bit biased, but best boundary corner in the country, my man. So, Philly, once again, brother, appreciate you for jumping on the Inside the BCFC episode number 11, not number 1, because I know you are Uno, but we went with the double ones to get you on, buddy. So I appreciate it. I know you're running to practice and got a busy time with work and all that stuff going on inside of football as well. So I appreciate you jumping on, Philly.
awesome. Thanks for having me, Cole. Have a good one.
Of course, buddy. Chat soon.
So.
Alrighty, y'all. Big shout out to one Felice Toscano, VI Raiders defensive back, for hopping on this week's episode of Inside the BCFC. Let's get back into business, which was chatting a little bit about what happened in week number 10. Before we fast forward, we'll chat a little bit about week number 11 before we get out of here, just the implications of each game, which really basically, one. We'll see what happens down in Westshore for sure, but that Valley VI game specifically is a massive one. Although the loser isn't eliminated with a loss, it's a big momentum swing for the winner going into the final week of the regular season, understanding that basically they take care of their business, they're in no matter what. There's no win and hope like the other side will most likely be. It's win and you're in for whoever wins this matchup. So let's get back though. Let's rewind here, folks, and let's get into let's work our way back from 7 o'clock down to the 4 o'clock kickoff game. So 7 o'clock kickoff last week was the Vancouver Island Raiders defeating the Westshore Rebels by a whopping 10-8 final score. As I mentioned before, we were joined by Juan Feliche Toscano. This game was, I shouldn't say in a downpour. It wasn't pouring rain, but it was in a down, consistent rain for 3 hours, which was ridiculous. It definitely played into a 10-8 score, a 3-0 halftime lead, I believe is what it was by VI. And I believe would have been 2 missed field goals. Can't remember by VI. Rebels drop passes. Definitely a lot of missed opportunities for the Westshore Rebels to put up some more points, add to the scoreboard. But at the end of the day, how can you not tip your cap to the Vancouver Island Raiders for being able to find a way to win this one when late, to be honest, it looked like the Westshore Rebels were going to be able to take this one with about 5 minutes to go. Maybe a little bit under that, to be honest. I think it was maybe 4 minutes to go. 4 minutes to go, maybe 3.5 minutes to go. Langley started driving with the ball in VI territory and could have had the opportunity to kick a field goal or decided to go on third down. They ultimately go on third down, do not get it. They end up turning the ball over on downs. A few minutes later, they end up getting possession of the ball and end up going for a touchdown drive, which if they kicked a field goal, would have mean, all crazy things could have happened. So weather definitely played into things, as well as I mentioned earlier, 58 penalties. I'm not going to get myself in trouble, so that's all I'm going to say. 58 penalties for 485 yards. I guess to get back to a VI perspective, defensively, same old, same old. Maybe not up to, getting back to the standard, as the previous week they weren't up to the standard of, Coach Arabsky's defense in that 29-29 tie to the Langley Rams, but they get back to that in a big way. Now, although maybe a little bit contradicting myself in, the weather playing into part and stuff like that, they did their job for 3.5 quarters on Gavin Session for the most part. Their receivers dropped some passes, but no, I don't know how much they would have, and it's maybe a little bit unfair of me to say of how much these 10 to 15, 20-yard passes would have changed the game, the outcome. There might have been a longer one, there might have been a longer one or two, excuse me, is what I'm trying to get out of here. But, I thought the VI Raiders defense did a valuable job in keeping this game low scoring, not letting Westshore take advantage of any short field, anything like that, getting crucial stops when momentum looked like it could have been swinging the other way. So I felt like guys like Colton Finstad, Max Shipham, Aiden Bytel going against his former team for the third time this season. He had himself a very good game, was very active early on. And then when Feliche was a little bit banged up to end that one, ended up leaving the second half of that game, Bytel went to covering Zion Brown in their game plan, which was to basically shadow Zion Brown with Felice once again for the third straight time, as he would have done it in the first two games. They ended up leaving that responsibility to Bytel, and he stepped up in a big way in the second half. Other than that, offensively, I mean, gotta tip your cap and give a huge shout out to the 1-2 punch. I know I said the three-headed monster in the backfield. I thought we were going to see a little bit more of Deshaun Jacobs running the ball. We saw him returning quite a bit, but didn't see any of Deshaun Jacobs really out of the backfield much. Wanted to keep him fresh on special teams, which I do understand. But Parker Willis, coming off his 100-yard game, was very effective once again. Did not finish with 100 yards in back-to-back games. But Ronde Lau, up over 100 yards. Ronde still top 5 in rushing in the BCFC. Has been a very effective back this season, and is going to start to creep into that conversation of top 3 back into the BCFC. I think if maybe he could, take care of the ball a little bit better in previous games, absolutely, he would be in that conversation. But I think him adding to his game the physical standpoint of finishing runs hard and lowering the shoulder and the boom at times, if we're being honest, Ronde Lau has really impressed me this season and the physicality he's running with. So the Raiders, the Lions is hilarious. The Raiders have most definitely have a 1-2 punch in the backfield, and that's leaving out Deshaun Jacobs, who I think the team is high on, and myself especially. But before we get out of this game, I have to include it. Gavin Session, and I'm sure going to hear it from all my Raiders current players, coaches, all that stuff. So let me hear it. But man, what a fourth quarter from this kid. And he impressed me all game long, if we're being completely honest, where he was escaping pressure, staying composed, keeping his eyes downfield. And it's crazy because me and Noah were saying it's the best zero point outcome from a quarterback we've ever seen. I believe he finished with like 170 yards. So it's like he didn't have the greatest game by any means, but it was in the style and the fashion that he was doing it, especially in the fourth quarter where he was evading defenders, extending the play time and time again, and then finding receivers downfield. It was like, this is ridiculous. And if we're being honest, probably should have led them to a win, or that game should have been going to overtime. I guess I shouldn't say overtime. Should have been maybe a tie. again for the second straight week. But I think of the Hoffman one, which I'm sure Hoffman's kicking himself after that one of right down the pipe, right down the a post, a skinny post, seeing that he maybe bent down towards the goalpost a little bit, right in the bucket, and drop ball. And it's like there was points to be had. Couple more drop passes. Zion Brown, I'm thinking down the left sideline, near sideline to the broadcast booth, right through his hands. So there was some bigger plays to be had, some more touchdowns to be had from Gavin Sessions' performance there. But for my money, best quarterback in not only the BCFC, but I think the country, without having watched too much of the other two conferences. So that definitely being a biased take, but I'll go out on that ledge as of now without watching the other two conference play fully. So let's get into the other two games before we get too much into this one. And that was, as I mentioned, Huskers taking care of business, making sure they pick up win number 3. They don't have any lulls. They don't have a tie. They don't let Langley stay in it for too long and then take advantage of it. And they did a good job of, as I said, just taking care of business, understanding the task at hand, don't really mess around, as they were able to jump out to an early lead and take advantage from a Raiden Maston pick 6. Well, I think the first play from scrimmage, if I'm not mistaken, might have been the second play, if I'm trying to remember back correctly. Actually, folks, if anybody is trying to make fun of me, it's ridiculous trying to remember back through the amount of games that this kid tries to watch throughout a weekend. Okay? So let's cut me some slack, because I'm trying to watch all 3 games. I'm not getting all 3 games throughout the weekend. I'm watching 2. We're sprinkling in a little bit of college football on Saturdays, of course, if we're away. Probably a little bit of unlikely. We're most definitely sprinkling in the CFL games on Saturdays. Of course, we're watching the 2 on Friday night usually, or the 1 on Friday night, whatever it may be. We're watching a full slate of NFL on Sunday, as well as most likely rewatching one of the games that I missed from that Saturday in the BCFC. And then we're locked in for any Buffalo Bills game, which is sometimes when I'm drawing or I'm trying to remember, I'm like, no, not Lions, not Bills, not Lions. Don't remember the Lions, don't remember the Bills games. So Raiden Maston pick 6. I don't remember if it was the first play from scrimmage or the second play from scrimmage, but Raiden Maston did a fantastic job to stay on his feet and take that one for points the other way. And basically from there, they're able to, what do they do best? They run that dang ball with Jawad Harb, who for my money is the number 2 back in the BCFC. And you know what else they do? They run the dang ball with Keyshawn Dorsey, their quarterback. And they're not shying away from it in previous weeks, where they're giving design quarterback runs to get the ball in his hands. They're really leaning into that and Dorsey's threat as a runner on the ground. So it'll be curious to see with game this weekend, which we will chat about here in a little bit, just to end the episode. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. But this one sets up, as I said, to finish this one off, a massive one, as both the Valley Huskers and the BI Raiders now have 3 wins ahead of their game this upcoming Saturday at Hillside Stadium, at Exhibition Stadium. My apologies. And let's get into the final one of the slate in week number 10, which was, as I said, disappointing one for the Langley Rams, especially coming off the, don't want to say it's the high of tying the Raiders, because that just sounds bad, but just I felt like the bright spot of hey, we continue to be in the hunt. We didn't lose this game. Obviously, we tied it, which is not ideal. We gained a point. I feel like, should gain a little bit of confidence of hey, we played with a team that is arguably in the playoffs right now. Let's propel this forward to our tough end of the season at Okanagan, at Westshore, at VI, to hopefully playing with some confidence. And unfortunately for them, obviously they're down Plana Hooper to injury once again. And it's unfortunate for, Plana Hooper's 2 years in the BCFC. For as, good of a player he is, he's kind of, unfortunately hampered by injuries and misses some time. And it's unfortunate for that Langley Rams team, because I feel like they would be in a different spot. I feel like maybe not last Saturday specifically, but in previous games of Plana Hooper could I feel like is that guy to keep them in ball games and to give them a shot to win other ones for sure. So tough one, as I'm not too sure how the Rams kind of, how do you go forward from this, right? Of 94-0 isn't pretty on the scoreboard. You're going into a hostile Westshore environment down in Langford where they're going to be pissed off coming off, their loss, and they need to take care of business themselves to make sure they secure home field advantage for at least one playoff game. So tough one for the Rams, who, if they're able to at least, put up a little bit of a fight, gain some momentum, confidence, it'd be like, hey, we just tied the Raiders and they just beat Westshore. We can go into this one feeling like, hey, we can beat them. But it's like, man, like, how do you kind of gain much confidence coming into this one? And of course, Cole Barron kind of having to deal with his situation of, he gets suspended by the league from, getting kicked out of a game due to, kind of yelling or getting after a ref, if you will. He ends up getting, extra weeks given on or tacked on by the board from the Langley Rams. He ends up missing 3 weeks with the bye week in there. He comes back and, he finally gets, I feel like, on track and is like, man, I got a tie. Like this is not ideal, but hey, we're still alive here. Whereas if you lose to VI, it's kind of like, it's almost curtains in a sense, right? They're able to pick up that tie. It keeps them alive in the hunt. And then this is where you kind of, you turn the page to this, and it's like, this is the ultimate stinker. So it's going to be a tough one. But to get back to Okanagan, is you got to give them credit. And 94-0 is absolutely just like, you have to just, that's impressive. Number one, I believe it was 69-0 or something like that, or 60 to we were watching this pregame from NDSS Q Stadium. 69-0 or 65-0. I can't remember what the exact halftime score was, but absolutely ridiculous first half from the Okanagan Sun, who remain the class of the BCFC. And for my money, I cannot wait to see if they can cement themselves as the class of the CJFL this year, especially with that defensive line, defensive unit as a whole. I shouldn't just single out that defensive line, but when you talk about their defense and how dominant it is, I'm not even going to really talk about their defense at all, which is crazy to think about. Shout out to the guys that were able to, be ball hawks, rack up sacks, force fumbles, and stuff like that on defense. I believe I saw, was it Tariq Brown, nasty pick six. I don't know if it was Philip Palmerin, if it was Grayson Statham, sack, force fumble, or something like that. Vicente Ferrer has been flying around the last few weeks. Their offense has really started to turn a corner and become scary. And it's crazy to say turn a corner. I felt early in the season they were very they managed the game very well, and they did things to not hurt the team because they understood the defense that they had. They've been slinging this thing around, running the rock. They have been doing anything they want to teams, as well as special teams. Jordan Falconer has been having himself have yourself a month. He's been returning balls, not only kick return, punt return for touchdowns. He's been running them in. He's been catching them over 100 yards. Go-to guy kind of in that receiving core. But other guys, Seth Femekinde, back-to-back 100-yard games. I believe he had, was it 2 touchdowns 2 weeks ago? I believe he had another touchdown this week. For sure. Could have been 2 touchdowns, honestly, with how many points they scored. Let me go to the, quickly give the stats here. Sorry, folks. This is why I like usually having a guest or a co-host when I do these type of things, because then when it's quiet, or when he's talking, I can usually I'm gonna go look up stats, and instead I usually have to have that quiet. Seth McKinday, oh my goodness, 4 for 169 and 2 tutties. Where's Jordan Falconer didn't even have any. So, excuse me, folks. Jordan Falconer didn't have any receiving touchdowns. He had 2 punt return touchdowns. He had 2 returns for 155 yards, along with 79 and 2 tutties on punt return. They are getting very dynamic. And then Jaron Hardesty, over 1,000 yards rushing. Not only can they beat you on the ground, through the air now they're getting very scary. Liam Kroger, I kind of said it throughout the start of the season. I'm like, he's been a good game manager, and I hate that that's a comment that I have to defend because people take it the wrong way, because it's not. As I say multiple times, the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady, was the game manager. That is not a backhanded compliment. It's not a diss. It's not a bad compliment. So I thought Liam Kroger had himself a very good first half of the season as kind of like that game manager guy who didn't really turn over the football. Now this kid is turned into, a very big dynamic threat as a quarterback. 2 incompletions for 6 touchdowns. I think he had a rushing touchdown as well, so it might have been 7 total touchdowns, 2 incompletions. Just absolutely video games, ridiculous type numbers from this offense, who has really impressed me in the last few weeks, and I feel like will give them an opportunity versus the St. Clairs, versus the Reginas, versus the Saskatoons. Not to get ahead of myself or themselves, as I know they still have to take care of business with. They're on their bye week this week, and then they finish. I don't remember who they finish with, and then they'll get obviously the 4 seed up in Okanagan to start the playoffs. So before we get out of here, as we are up to 40 minutes, don't want to stay too much longer. Let's get into the matchups before we get out of here. And of course, you guys can see them already below, as I just said. Okanagan 9-0 on the bye week. Let's start from the late game, work our way back again with the Kamloops Broncos traveling to the Prince George Kodiaks for a 6 o'clock kickoff. For Prince George, this is win, and you secure that number 3 seed, and you will be going to Westshore pretty much, or you do keep your playoff hopes alive. But by that time, you will know if Westshore won or not. Kamloops, this is one where you're going to try to, it's been a tough season once again. You're just trying to, hold on to any, or try to, try to gain any momentum, any traction going into the offseason for yourself, any positivity, if you're able to keep it close, if you're able to miraculously win this one in an upset fashion. Any sort of positivity for the Kamloops Broncos. That's what you're trying to do in a game, in this game Saturday night. The second of 2 4 o'clock kickoffs are the Langley Rams at 2-5-1, traveling to the Westshore Rebels at 6-3 for a 4 o'clock kickoff in Langford. This is basically do or die now for the Langley Rams, because they dropped this one. It'll be their 6th loss, and they will be unable to catch the Vancouver Island Raiders or Valley Huskers for that final playoff spot. And other than that, the Westshore Rebels do actually have some, I guess, to play for. The Westshore Rebels, as I said, pissed off from their loss in week number 10 to the VI Raiders. They're still looking to clinch that number 2 seed, just to make sure that there's no funny business with PG being able to catch them in the last week or anything like that. They want to be hosting a playoff game and making sure they go into the playoffs on a high, as they do not play a game in week number 12 as well. I believe that's their bye week, which could be a benefit for them, right? They beat Langley in week number 11. They get that bye week, and that's boom. That could be chef's kiss, or it could be a little bit of a blessing in disguise, or it could be an opposite, right? Where maybe you're a little bit rusty, and PG can, we'll see. We'll see come playoff time. But the last one, and it'll be the biggest one of the weekend, is going to be the Valley Huskers hosting the VI Raiders. The battle of 3 4-1s, another 4 o'clock kickoff out in the Valley, as I mentioned, at Exhibition Stadium. 2 teams that are, I said this with Langley, but all 3 of them are very much the same. Not only their records were close, but like to run the rock, sneaky good receiving core, very good defense, who arguably are kind of the tip of the spear for both teams. Good, respectable coaching staffs. Bob Reese versus Sean Radke, part 2 of this season. Going to be a lot of fun. Personally, I'm still deciding, or kind of this is going to be a, last second decision for me, a game time decision, basically a GTD from Cole, whether or not I'm going to be able to make it over to the Valley and Chilliwack for this game, as I really want to get over there, cover this one, but I'm curious to see if it's going to be able to work out. So cross your fingers for me. Comment down below if you guys think I should go. If I shouldn't go, let me know. Or maybe encourage me. You guys should be the comment that I need to push me off the cliff to go. So other than that, this game is going to be, it doesn't totally decide, I believe, one way or the other, if the winner gets in and the loser is out. I believe the loser will still have a chance in the regular season finale, the Valley Huskers taking on the Prince George Kodiaks, and the Vancouver Island Raiders taking on the Langley Rams. So both teams, it could come down to the final week, which would be just, what entertainment, what cinema, drama. Insert, any word, describing word of excitement here, because the last week of the regular season to decide a playoff spot could be just hugely entertaining for anybody that's Canadian football fan, or just looking to enjoy any sort of football on Saturdays, because As I mentioned, folks, if you're not in, this weekend, if you're not in the Valley, Westshore, or PG, you guys can tune in to BCFC TV to check out all the action as we called game number 4 of my broadcast debut season. One more to go in week number 12 when the Vancouver Island Raiders host the Langley Rams, which would be a ton of fun. Hopefully it could come down to maybe that being a playoff game, legitimately a playoff game if winner gets in. Either way, that's going to be a ton of fun to call for myself and my broadcast partner, Noah Atnikoff, as we really enjoyed our calls this season. If you guys have tuned in this season, let us know in the comments down below. Love to hear your feedback. Love to know where you guys are tuning in from. If you guys are tuning in on BCFC TV, and we'd love to hear some of your feedback. We've been blown away by some of the positive feedback that we've been receiving from all the BCFC fans this season. I think Noah and I have we enjoyed ourselves quite well, and looking forward to the future of being broadcast partners, calling Vancouver Island Raiders games. It should be a ton of fun for the future and beyond. But we got one more left. As I mentioned, if you guys can't get out to the parks this weekend, tune into BCFC TV. You guys won't miss out on any of the action, and it is a nice production that is right there in your guys' living room for you guys. Other than that, folks, that's going to do it for episode number 11 of Inside the BCFC. Another big shout out to our guest, Felice Toscano. Please appreciate you, Philly, for joining us, buddy, and hopping on this week's episode. Lastly, before we get out of here, folks, of course, if you guys could like today's video, comment down below. Most importantly, subscribe to the channel. When you guys subscribe, press the notification bell. You guys get notified every single time we go live or upload a video like this one right here. And of course, follow us on our social media platforms at _CF Fanatics on Twitter and at Canadian Football Fanatics on Instagram. 10 weeks down, 2 more to go, folks. Really hope you guys enjoy this week's action in the BCFC as it is week number 11. 2 more weeks to go in the regular season before playoff time is here. So it is dwindling, folks. Enjoy it while it's here, as the off season will be a lonely time when we will be missing this time of the year. So enjoy it, folks. We'll catch you on episode number 11 of Inside the BCFC next week.